Greetings and welcome to our Thursday night Worlds Collide race. I am one of your commentators, Seto Kaiba, and I am joined by Double Down.
Hey, how's everybody doing tonight?
So, Double Down, tell us why tonight is a very special night for our Thursday race.
Well, I'm very excited about it. This is the final of the Battle Royale 2022. It's been a very long, very arduous road for our racers. I think we had something like 37 or something starting this whole race, and we've whittled it down. Actually, I think we had 38 to start, and we've whittled it down to two. Xelpher versus DoctorDT. It's been over 6 rounds and then a couple more finals rounds after that. We've gotten all this way, and we're finally going to find out who the king of the Battle Royale format is. It's going to be a great race.
That's right. It's been a fun 2 months or 2+ months since we started this, and we're down to the last two. And Double Down, you sent me a bunch of stats that we have on our two runners, and I'll start with DoctorDT, and I'll let you cue in for the stats with Xelpher. But our first racer, DoctorDT, comes from the Spicy Chicken Pod, which also contained JS, a bunch of numbers, A Silverthorn, Sid, and WR Jones. Dr. DT came into the Battle Royale number 16th in the qualifying round and has raced for a grand total of 11 hours and 49 minutes throughout this Battle Royale. And you have it noted as a fun fact that he has narrowly avoided being eliminated twice in both Week 3 and during the semifinals.
Yeah, Dr. DT had some great races along the way. Somebody who had an even more dominating performance all the way along, Xelpher. The racer, so good they even named a Magitech ability after him. Xelpher started this off on the right foot. He came 8th in the qualifying round, and then over the next 10 hours and 31 minutes, just crushed the Inferno Pod. He eliminated Mr. Entity. He eliminated Laser Beam, Dusk Lamond, and finally some racer named Seto Kaiba. And it's been a tour de force. He has won every single week except for one back in the quarterfinals, and he was beaten by none other than Dr. DT. So there is precedent. Xelpher is coming into this as a favorite, but Dr. DT has proven that he has what it takes to take Xelpher down.
That's right, and these are two very accomplished runners. Xelpher has won, I believe, the first Battle Royale tournament over a year ago, and is normally in our finals or semifinals with all of our tournaments, whereas Dr. DT is slightly newer to Worlds Collide, but has put up impressive times and obviously crushed everyone throughout the way here. He had a very close finish against Hash Malam in the semifinals, semifinals I believe is when he raced them, and has been putting up amazing times as well. So we have two of our best runners going to put on hopefully a clinic of Worlds Collide here.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a great demonstration of what the top level Worlds Collide play looks like. I think we're going to see some really great strats, which we've already seen in this tournament. We've already seen some meta-defining moves from even some of the racers in this room. So I think this is going to be a great one. I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, and for people that's tuning in, can you maybe describe what the flag set is for the finals?
Absolutely, I can. So most of our viewers are probably familiar with the Battle Royale setup to date. Just to sort of summarize that, 6 characters and 9 espers get to Final Kefka. However, there is the opportunity to get a skip if you go 3 over on characters or espers. I'll pause for a sec because it looks like we're starting in. We've got Locke, Sabin, and Umaro with Shock and Lore, so it might be a pretty fast start. But what do you think we're going to see first here?
That's a very good question. With Sabin, I think Imperial Camp has to be pretty high on the list. You get those fixed encounters. One thing we've been seeing ever since the quarterfinals, or even before then, with kind of the scaling and no free progression, is that encounters and experience is really key, especially get an early jump start. You want your levels high, and you want them consistently high, and so any check that's going to result in experience is probably a good play early on. So Imperial Camp would be my pick.
I think it's a great pick, and it is one of those situations where we have seen over the course of these weeks that scaling has gone up, and we also know that boss levels start a little higher. I think as of week 5 and 6, the boss level started higher, so there's one reason why our racers might not be jumping right into another boss encounter right off the start. You can do it with Locke. I mean, Locke's a great example where you can go right to the South Figaro Cave. The other reason that they might not jump right into a boss fight, normalize and distort. So, Seto, do you want to talk about it, or should I break the bad news about N&D?
I can try to talk about it. Whenever there's been a discussion in the Discord breaking down the nitty-gritty of normalizing the distort, I will admit some of it goes over my head. But the long and short of it is to make the weaker boss fights a little more viable later in the game. So stuff like Phantom Train or Tunnel Armor can actually put up a slight bit of fight later in the game. It results in most of the time stats on these bosses being a lot higher, but that's not guaranteed. But overall, it means that we're in for longer fights, tougher fights, and it's the only scaling that also impacts the final battle.
Yeah, I mean, it really kind of throws you for a loop sometimes. I think we've seen it in some recent races where, maybe one of the 4 tentacles that you'd normally fight in the Figaro basement seems to be a little more thick and juicy than the others. Or maybe the lightning attacks that you'd be getting from Funbaba, normally kind of a joke. He's not really built for magic. When it's normalized to distort, sometimes he is built for magic, and what can normally be a pushover boss can be a little more spooky. So we'll be seeing our racers be a little more alert for that, I think.
Yeah, and while it's not the most popular of flags, I think one fun thing we're probably going to see here is maybe a little more defensive plays and defensive manipulation by our runners. You mentioned stuff like Funbaba's lightning attacks being stronger. Sometimes defense gets Funbaba's. I'm sorry, I'm getting a little feedback. Okay, I think we're good now. A lot of times defense can be a little ignored in these races, but with normalized and stored on, you might see some very creative defensive plays and equipment being used.
Yep, I think it's going to really have an impact, especially I think we're going to see it on those first few boss fights, and then it's going to show its ugly face again on Final Kefka, where sometimes, I think our racers have a lot of experience, and at this point, we're seeing racers who know very well at what point in the hit point totals that some counterattacks start coming on board. Normalize and distort throws a monkey wrench and all that. So I think it's going to have an impact throughout this race, and I'm looking forward to seeing how our racers deal with it.
Yeah, and we're seeing some interesting starts here. DoctorDT immediately going into Phoenix Cave. One popular kind of strategy some people have been using with these later flag sets, it's taking an early dragon fight, and having access to a dragon here, be able to get a bunch of treasure, and not necessarily being wall behind a boss, makes Phoenix Cave definitely an alluring pick. And starting with Umaro means you have maybe someone to throw in that other party if if you don't want him to get XP.
I think that's a great point. I don't think too many of our racers usually want to invest or care to invest too many XP in Umaro. You're not missing out any stat boosts with him because he's not going to be equipping any espers, and it is a very rare race where Umaro takes it all the way to Kefka's Tower. So a really good opportunity. If DoctorDT is feeling especially spicy, maybe he takes the dragon. I don't think he will, but certainly if there is a fight taken here, he's not too upset that Umaro is not going to be invited to the party.
The other thing you have to wonder too is Phoenix Cave is not the most popular of picks. You're here in the finals. You're up against a very seasoned runner in Xelpher. If you're DoctorDT, do you maybe try some things that are a little more unorthodox, hope for maybe get a little ahead on a gated check that that Xelpher might not go for right away?
I mean, I think it's a great point. That's kind of the game theory coming into it, right? Where will you get an advantage over the other racers, or in this case, the other racer who might be taking the more conventional approach? Do you have an opportunity to maybe pick up an advantage that he might, or he or she might not have, by going in a different route? So you might find that character or that esper that puts you on a very different and sometimes very advantageous path. I think there's a lot of merit to that, and I think, again, one of these things that separates these stronger racers.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be interesting kind of seeing what he does if he takes this dragon here. But Xelpher doing a little bit more shopping, something that is you haven't seen a lot in these later flag sets. because we have tiered shops on, and therefore some of the top tier items are a little bit harder to find. Even some regular items like Phoenix Downs are also a little tougher to find. And I'd be curious to see what this extra minute or two he spent with World of Balance to figure out how that factors into his final time, as Xelpher also choosing to do an early Phoenix Cave.
Yeah, this is surprising. I thought, we might see one of them go to the Phoenix Cave, but normally I wouldn't be surprised to see somebody do the Imperial Encampment, something like that first. So it is interesting to see them both following the same line. And I don't know. I guess we'll see how this plays out. Do you think we'll see either of them take on the dragon here?
I think maybe Xelpher, because DoctorDT put Yumaro in his party with Locke and has Sabin in the second party, so you probably don't want to take the dragon with only one of your two, like, quote-unquote main characters right now. But Xelpher did not. Xelpher kept Yumaro in his own party, so we'll see if Xelpher ends up going for the dragon, as DoctorDT elects not to. And you mentioned about going to Imperial Camp first. One thing, especially starting with Shock, is they actually might want progress to go up one bit of scaling before taking those fixed encounters in order to get a little bit more experience. With Shock, they might feel comfortable taking on slightly stronger normal enemies, and kind of min-maxing that experience with their routing could potentially be a very good strategy.
Yeah, also it buys you some time to maybe find some early espers. Ideally, if you get lucky, you get a magic power +2 esper early, and then can start feeding that shock user magic power bonuses right from level 3. If you start that early, I know some people feel shock tails off near the end of the game, but with about 35 levels of magic power boosts, shock's pretty good. Doesn't matter what kind of situation you're in.
And I missed at the beginning, is Shock on Locke or Sabin?
Shock is on Sabin, I want to say.
Yeah, especially with Sabin. Sabin, notorious for his low magic power, is not going to be nearly as effective with Shock as, say, a Shadow or Terra or a Realm or someone. So magic power plus Esper would really make Sabin into something viable if they want to go that route. Because that's going to taper off very quickly if they can't find something to kind of boost Sabin's power there.
Absolutely. So we do see Locke picking up the Alexander Esper for DoctorDT in the cave, and I believe we'll see Xelpher getting that too. I found that out by checking our tracking sheet, and we have the wonderful Ceiling Cat, one of our expert trackers who really makes these race restreams, really makes them work. Ceiling Cat providing the tracking, so big shout out to them for carrying the load there.
Yeah, and thank you to everyone in our community, our regular trackers, our regular restreamers. Special shout out to Saberwolf, who did a lot of the heavy lifting with restreaming throughout this entire tournament, and also the one who made that fancy graphic that we saw at the very beginning. He definitely put in a lot of behind-the-scenes work with the Battle Royale tournament.
Yeah, I mean, great community overall. Tons of great contributions in so many different ways. I'm sure we'll be talking more about it and how people can get involved if they want to, see what they're seeing here and decide that this is the game they want to join and the community they want to get engaged in. They absolutely should. It's a great group. I don't think there's a bad apple in the whole bunch, and we're always excited to have newcomers to show them the ropes and introduce them to this exciting world of Worlds Collide.
That's right. If you want to check us out, if you're not already part of the community, you can go to ff6wc.com or join our Discord or at ff6wc.com/discord.
So we're seeing a couple more shop checks and looting. So DoctorDT now hitting into the Returner's hideout. Well, I think Xelpher's down in Albrook. So we're seeing some more of that early shopping. Maybe some more opening moves before they do decide to start taking a couple more early checks. So where do you think we're going to see them go next? We've seen them both go to the Phoenix Cave. They've got some decent options, especially with Sabin, who unlocks 5 checks all by himself. Where do we see them going next?
Yeah, that's very interesting. I've seen them pick up a Thunder Rod, or in Xelpher's case, a Thunder Rod. Both of them have picked up a Thunder Shield. One possible play on, besides Imperial Camp is Thunder Armor spot. You do have to slow down a bit to take some of the random encounters there, but you have a full heal. You can get a level or two before fighting that boss. You have a shield or a rod to break. You can very easily get a boss to start snowballing from there. So definitely a possible early pick, but it looks like DoctorDT is going to Imperial Camp, a very safe and solid check, and hopefully should get him started on some levels.
Yeah, really, I think a great opening check to do, especially again, as you mentioned, really, really good observation that you've got the shock. Fixed encounters are not that scary. You've got a way to clear them out pretty quickly and effectively without losing any resources. So, um, a great way to get some early levels in a reasonably safe fashion. Now, you made a great observation a little earlier, Seto, about game theory, about how maybe one of our racers will intentionally zig into an unexpected direction. Do we think we'll see, and I think we're all hoping for this, do we think we'll see an early Phantom Train ride?
That is definitely a possibility. I personally like an early Phantom Train. You're already there with Imperial Camp. You're already there for Barren Falls, and at the very least, it's not a lot of time to just go in and peek it, right? So be able to pop in, you see a character, you can take them, get your routing going, or at the very least, you take a note and you come back later. I personally think an early Phantom Train, it can be very powerful for at the very least for the knowledge you get from it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's nice to have that upfront knowledge, and not a bad spot to grab a couple levels too for some grind fights. Now, Dr. DT has run into sort of a not ideal situation. At least one of the fixed encounters here in the Imperial camp was a Kefka's Tower boss, or Kefka's Tower monster, which is not exactly an ideal early fixed encounter fight.
No, and so we'll see what the other two has to offer. The second one was a decent check. So a decent amount of experience. If you get two more of those, you might be in pretty good shape. Xelpher, I noticed, picked up an Economizer, a relic that, while in the vanilla game it's definitely very popular. Here in Worlds Collide, doesn't get as much use, but if you're gonna find it, finding it early with lore is definitely the way to go. If he has a decent lore on him, lore is very hard to use at level 3 because of the high MP cost, but you can maybe start doing some work with it.
100%. Some of those lures early on, you're exactly right, cost prohibitive, but if you can start casting things like 1 MP Blowfish, that really turns the tide of some early fights. Now we've got, speaking of tough early fights, double Doom Dragon. So more of these endgame fights. Doom Dragon can do some awful things early on. We're seeing a Fallen one come out, but you've got Fallen one. Occasionally I think it does L5 Doom, which depending on your levels can be a nice easy wipe. So not exactly the most friendly Imperial base that Dr. DT is finishing up and Xelpher is just heading into.
Yeah, and from my understanding, Doom Dragon at level 3 can only do Fallen 1, but they're not level 3. They've been scaled up because they found that Alexander Esper. So that was definitely a risky play by Dr. DT, but with 2 shocks and some physicals, he managed to take him out and get a good chunk of experience for his trouble. So high risk, high reward play from Dr. DT.
Yep, absolutely. As he finishes up, and he's immediately leaving the camp, not doing any monster in a box. He's done. He's moving on, and he did pick up Ifrit for his troubles. So that's 2 Espers now for Dr. DT and Xelpher right behind him. It's neck and neck so far, and they're both following the exact same path.
And that Ifrit is slightly more useful than Alexander. You get an X-Zone on him, and more importantly, a Strength +1. Sabin does have a good amount of natural strength. You put that Strength +1 on him and you find a decent weapon, you potentially have an endgame build going on. It's not as good as the Magic Power one, but it's definitely nothing to sneeze at either.
No, absolutely. Of all the characters that you want to start building for physical attacks, Sabin's a great one. Right up there with Gao in terms of awesome opportunity to build a physical attacker. I think most people in the community, I think there's some mixed feelings about the effectiveness of Vigor compared to Magic Power, but still, anybody, if you give them a full game of Esper boosts, whatever you're giving them a boost on, they're going to be great as long as it's not stamina.
That's right. Getting any Esper boost early is definitely the way to go. Unlike Magic Power, it's a little more situational because it's going to depend on what weapons our runners find, and that's kind of the first thing that you have to start thinking of if you're either of these runners. Is you look at what you have right now. You have shock, you have some kind of below average magic, and that's about it. You got to start thinking, what kind of end game are my characters going to be at? What are my builds like? Because right now you've not been given a whole lot by the game.
No, I mean, the loot has been pretty modest so far. I don't think we've seen any real game breaking early drops. None of the checks we've done early have given anything that's really remarkable. So yeah, it's not exactly a jet seed so far here.
That's right. And Dr. DT now is checking World of Ruin Narsh. So far, the difference between our two runners has just been that Xelpher's done a little bit more looting, and Dr. DT got into his Imperial Camp check a little bit quicker. So we'll see if Xelpher ends up checking here or if we're going to get a route divergence.
Yeah, you'd think they'd break up pretty soon. Now, Dr. DT has made a pretty good discovery there. The Cursed Shield, only out of 4. Especially with a start like this. Seto, I have to think, I mean, you got to be decursing that shield with 4, right?
Oh, absolutely. You wish you picked it up at the very beginning. If no free progressions on, that would be the first thing both the runners did, would be check locks, check, and then get that Cursed Shield. But 4 battles is completely attainable. There's no more fixed battles currently with our setup, but we do, getting it for a few bosses definitely doable, especially if they take advantage of the Cursed Shield glitch by equipping it mid battle.
Yeah, not only do you get away with some free games or free battles with your Cursed Shield, but you get kind of a temporary ribbon out of it as well, as we see a relatively scary looking fight of Magimaster himself at the Barren Falls. Not what we want to see early, but we do have Shock. Now, I think somebody asked in chat, Hefe was asking about free progression. This is no free progression, so there is some incentive to maybe either tactically grab those high-level items from dead checks, or just to plan around it, knowing that you won't have too many dead checks from the main things. But these are both some scary fights on both sides of the race here.
No, yeah, I think Xelpher had the right of it, though. Shock was doing 4 digits, which was a lot more than I thought with Sabin, but those 2 earrings definitely doing work. And if you're going to run into Magimaster, and you run into him early when you have a decent Shock, is definitely a way to go, because Dr. DT, if he runs into him, he's going to be a lot higher level, and it's going to be even nastier. So Xelpher, in my opinion, getting a good break by encountering that Magimaster early, and it being Barren Falls, if it didn't work in his favor, he can just reset out and have a very small time loss.
Yeah, great point. Not very much investment as he comes out of that with Maju in for his trouble as well. So really kind of a nice place to visit now. You don't have a very scary Magimaster. You get that Mega Elixir, which is pretty useful, as either a get out of jail free card or to counter that fallen one during the Kefka fight. And you get another Esper. So kind of win-win-win.
Meanwhile, Dr. DT takes out his first dragon. I didn't get a chance to see what the loot was from that. Did you manage to catch that?
It was a pair of Marvel shoes from the dragon, so not exactly what you want to see. Probably one of the least impressive of the rewards you can get from a dragon fight. But, we also see the Dream Stooges here, who, again, can be a little bit annoying later on. So not a bad time to fight these, especially, again, when you have Shock. You can start clearing them out as long as you can get them down before they start delta hitting and eating up your softs or possibly wiping you.
Yeah, I can't say I'm an expert on normalizing distort, but from a little bit I've played, I found that the Dream Stooges in general are a little meaner. They seem to have a lot more HP than you would expect, and you can kind of see it here with these Shocks and these pearls, and Curly at the top there is took a lot to kind of be knocked out. So this this fight might be a little more dragged out than Dr. DT would like.
Yeah, and he might not know it, but he doesn't want to lose too many consumables here, because it turns out over in the Coliseum, if you bring in a Revivify, you walk out of there with a Valiant Knife. So pretty good deal for the Coliseum.
Absolutely. We were saying about how both runners need to figure out their endgame offense, and Valiant Knife, it can only be equipped by Locke in the base game, and it is a 33% chance that any other character can equip it. But since you start with Locke, you can use it. And now you're keeping an eye out for Offering, and more importantly for Genji Gloves, because you have a source for more Valiant Knives if you need it. And so suddenly, Locke is set for endgame. Even if he doesn't find a Genji Glove or an Offering, that's still a pretty decent amount of offense come endgame with the Valiant Knife.
Yeah, great solution for the endgame. Now, Seto, does this affect your decision-making on Monsters in a Box? Are you going to hunt the Monsters in a Box a little bit more to dig for that Offering now that you've got the Valiant Knives?
This early, absolutely. I think that, as long as you're not going horrible out of your way for it, it's definitely the play to go. As Dr. DT picks up the Shiva Esper, but unfortunately, Yamaru was the only one left alive, so everyone else, loses out on that experience, and I believe he loses out on a Curse Shield battle as well by having both Locke and Sabin wipe, so that is a little rough.
Yeah, always kind of awkward when one of your characters in a non-full party is somebody like Umaro, where They Umaro's not very good at using Phoenix down to revive his friends. Meanwhile, we've got Ultros 1 going down very, very quickly. A pretty trivial fight this early down in the South Figaro Cave, and rewards Xelpher with a Phantom Esper. So lots of Espers going around. No characters to be seen yet, but all the Magicite.
Yeah, and for the most part, the Magic's been a little ho-hum, but the one thing we saw there on Phantom is Mute, a spell that won't get a lot of use except for tier 2. So Xelpher definitely noticed that and will make it a priority to make sure at least one person knows that spell.
Yeah, we've seen a few pretty interesting spells so far. We've got, I think, Quick floating around as well, and an Ice 3, but unless I'm looking at the wrong spot on this tracker. But yeah, we've seen Life 3 and Flare as well, so definitely some good options there to get the ball rolling if we do find some magic users. Flare especially, not the sexiest spell. It is a pretty long animation, but for a shock user where they would kind of like that single target option as well, not a bad thing to have that Flare in the back pocket.
Yeah, it's slow. It's something that runners don't like to use, but it is not an elemental. It is defense ignoring, so it is definitely something that is nice to have, especially when, say, DoctorDT eventually fights that Magimaster that we previously saw. If you have to fall back on it, it's not the worst thing in the world. You just don't want to depend on it as your main source of offense.
Yeah, DoctorDT picking up some more Ribbon. So Ribbon, great to have for the Curse Shield, opens up that option to pretty safely do that without having to do item swapping if you want. So kind of a nice pickup there for DoctorDT.
Yeah, I definitely agree. You saw in the PM soccer fight, he tried to what's it called? Do the item glitch by equipping the Curse Shield mid battle, but he killed the PM soccer before it could happen. So being able to equip the Ribbon is just going to speed things up, so you don't have to sit here and do some unneeded menuing and waste time in these fights to uncurse it. Meanwhile, Xelpher encountering his second Ultros. I believe this is Ultros 3 that he is fighting now at Mount Colts. He previously fought Ultros 1 at the Tunnel Armor spot.
Yeah, all sorts of Ultros so far, as we see on DoctorDT's side. The big stomping footprints of Cyan. Our first new character is going to join the party as long as he can get through Dullahan, which I expect he will.
Yeah, this is a big pickup by both our runners. On our left, Xelpher picks up Fenrir, a very key Esper for getting by the end of Tier 3 Kefka, whereas DoctorDT finds our first character. There aren't too many checks here, and we haven't seen Phantom Train yet, but we've seen all the rest, and we know that none of the rest except for Phantom Train are characters. So, or Kefka at Narsh, of course. So depending on what's here with Xelpher's Phantom Train, this could be a big lead by DoctorDT if Xelpher spends some time going for checks that don't lead for characters.
Yeah, it could make a big difference as we see Xelpher going in the rear entrance of the Phantom Cave or the Phantom Train to check on this one. So we're gonna see an early Phantom Train. Whether he finishes the train ride, that will be the big question.
Oh, and with a Realm, that is very fortunate for Xelpher. You get a 50 magic power Realm. Not a great ability, but 50 magic power. You throw that Flare or Pearl on her. You can start getting something going to get better magic. And, of course, that means we're not gated behind that Cyan. And both our runners now can go completely different directions if they choose to do so. Because I don't know if we'll see Xelpher go for Umaro now that Realm's here, if she leads to another character or two.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit of a hike going up there. It's not quite as bad as Narsh World of Balance, where you can at least warp out after, but when you've got Realm, you've got a couple more interesting checks. Hauser's pretty favorable, especially early on when the encounters are still useful. Esper Mountain, very quick place to go check out. So, yeah, I do think we're going to see some divergence. Cyan, same type deal. Cyan's got some good opportunities for some good checks. Pretty much all of Cyan's checks are either quick or reasonably efficient. So, yeah, I think we're going to see some big divergence now.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be a big thing here. Realm is obviously the better character to get, but Ozer's Mansion is a little bit slower. Esper Mountain, of course, very quick. But Cyan gets access to a dragon. Doma Castle, it is extremely quick check, and then the Dream is one of the most efficient checks per boss per check that you have in the game. So definitely from a check perspective, Cyan is the better pickup. But in the long run, Realm will probably end up winning out on pure offense.
Yeah, it's hard to argue with all that magic power. As we sort of alluded to earlier, magic power as a stat is is pretty potent. Doesn't take too many good spells either. If you find even one level 3 spell, you've essentially got a character who can probably take that trick and run right up to Final Kefka with it.
Exactly. It's not a world beater compared to say that Valiant Knife that he has sitting there, but even with the Pearl and Flare, you're set for the mid game with Realm if you really need to fall back on either one of those.
Yep, and now we see Dr. DT running right up to Mount Zozo, getting a second ribbon, and have to imagine that we'll be seeing another dragon fight here as well. So that's going to be the second dragon for Dr. DT.
Yeah, and that's going to be interesting if he decides to pick up this dragon or not, because unlike most flag sets, dragons are a little bit of a double-edged sword here. Every time you fight a dragon, all the other dragons go up 10 levels, and dragons count for scaling as well. So if you fight too many dragons, you'll find that your endgame bosses are it's going to be a lot stronger. And I know that really kind of bit me in the butt during my last round in the Battle Royale, where I was not anticipating that. Of course, both our runners have spent weeks running this flag set or a version of this flag set, so Dr. DT is probably knows exactly how comfortable he feels with how many dragons he wants to take.
Yeah, that's a great call. I think we've seen a lot of practice. I know Xelpher, watching over the last couple of days, he's done just one more practice race, I think probably 8 or 9 dozen times. So Xelpher has practiced this ad nauseum, but we are seeing another dragon fight being taken. And you're right. I mean, we've got to worry. Is there a worry here that you might start falling too far behind scaling, or do you have that comfort level because of things like shock that you can sort of push ahead?
I think if you're going to take a second dragon, taking it earlier is better than taking it later. I think once you go beyond 2, you maybe are kind of in a world of hurt, because from my understanding, the experience you get from a dragon does not offset the scaling that you get from it. So if you're going to fight one, early with drill and shock is probably the way to go, especially if you're trying to teach stuff like Life 3. And we'll see in a second what he gets for it, as Xelpher goes on to fight the boss of Phantom Train, which we'll see in a second. Hopefully this is something that is not too tough, because you cannot escape Phantom Train once you start this check.
Fortunately, not too bad of one. It's going to be the Flame Eater, who can be a bit of a challenge if you don't have a way to clear out those bombs very quickly. Luckily, we both have racers both have access to shock, so I don't think these balloons will be too much of a problem here, as Dr. DT.
I think we might have lost Double Down there. Are you there, man? Okay, I think we have some technical difficulties with Double Down, but Dr. DT finding a Esper on the top of Mount Zozo, Crusader, not a bad pickup. We'll see in a second what is on the Esper. At least you have level 1 cure, which is not a world beater, but it is serviceable, with healing being a little harder to find in a normal Worlds Collide seed. Beggars can't be choosers here. Xelpher heading over and now going to do what looks like to be Kefka at Narsh. Definitely interesting check when there's still a few outstanding checks going on. We'll see if that's actually what he's doing here, or if he's just doing some additional shopping. Oh, he's picking up some additional earrings. That makes perfect sense. With tiered shops, earrings are a lot rarer to find, and so if you find them in a shop, you definitely want to take note, because you might not be able to find them in a lot of other places, and they are a great filler relic. So yeah, stop by Narsh just for a second, buy those earrings, and maybe take this chest, and then dip out.
So with that, it looks like my internet decided that now was the perfect time. In the middle of the Battle Royale final, what a perfect time for the internet to go out for a little bit. But it's back now. Now, while I was contemplating my bad internet connection, I was thinking about this. We've seen now Xelpher has done both the Phantom Train and the Phoenix Cave. We haven't seen it taken too often, but do we expect that if he finds Strago or if he finds Terra, will we see the last pieces of that puzzle to get that Illumina extra objective?
Or Celeste, right? Isn't Celeste's Opera House also?
That's right. Opera House Disruption. Yep, you're exactly right. So, do we think he'll go for it if he gets that last piece of the puzzle?
I wonder, because I watched a few of his practice races earlier, and I noticed he went for it in one of those. With, often the way it is, you have a Valiant Knife, but if you're looking for something for someone else, and is maybe not a bad pick. With no free progression, you find that the last few espers or characters, you typically have to go to checks you don't like. You typically have to kind of do almost every check you're given because, there's just not that many. So potentially, but it's really going to depend. However, Xelpher does pick up Terra here, so that does bring Leet River into play for that, on top of a whole slew of other great checks that Terra brings along.
Wow, yeah. Adding in strengths to strengths. So Xelpher, who looks, if we're looking at the tracker, we're looking pretty neck and neck other than the dragon difference. But Xelpher having that pair of Valiant Knives and now immediate access, if he chooses, to go get an Illumina, you have to think Xelpher might have a little bit of a sneaky lead here at this point.
Yeah, it's still a little tough to tell. Both our runners are at 9 checks at the moment with no dead checks. I feel like Xelpher, yes, has a little bit better offense going, especially with those Valiant Knives. But we're going to see DoctorDT pick up a good amount of experience here with these Ogres and Power Demons at Doma here. That's some decent experience, potentially, but it looks like he might only be doing one fight. So yeah, I think this is going to be interesting whether he decides to do Leet River or not. With normalizing the start, how scaling is, you kind of want to get as much experience as you possibly can. And while Leet River is slow, those fixed encounters might actually be kind of nice to take right now.
Absolutely. I think fixed encounters, one of those things that the later into the seed you get, the more they go from being something beneficial to something that's going to really slow you down. Now, that Terra is nice. Not only is Terra replacing Umaro because she's not Umaro, but also X magic. So how does that impact things now? We've seen some decent espers so far, and now we've got another character with a decent baseline magic stat who also comes with X magic. How does this change the plan for Xelpher?
I think in the short term, it's not going to change much. We don't have particularly that great magic outside of Pearl and Flare, and like we said before, those spells are slow. The other thing about X magic is it's also slow. You are going to be tied into 2 animations, even if you don't need both of them unless you finish the battle. So X magic can be a little bit of a trap because it is a little bit slower. But if she can find if Xelpher can find a Fire 3 or something like that, definitely gives you options. I think what you want to do here is maybe try to find an Illumina or Ragnarok to give Terra and fall back on that X magic for good curing and other defensive plays.
I think that's a great point. Illumina is just the thing. Now, I do know a river where Xelpher could find an Illumina, so we'll see. Of course, Xelpher first doing the sealed cave. Now, I don't think we'll see Xelpher go all the way through here. I think we might just see Xelpher check out this basement and then leave. Something I think we're seeing increasingly with the no free progression flag on, that just not quite justifying the time spent and immediately making it worth his while with a experience egg. How does that affect things for Xelpher?
I know it's a meme and everyone wants to see Leet River, but I think finding that experience egg makes Leet River suddenly very interesting. Those 6 encounters can really, you have a strength +1 Esper, you have fixed encounters, you have an experienced egg, and you're getting an Illumina out of it. You can make Terra suddenly very, very strong in a very short amount of time with those tools. So that would be something I would be strongly considering now at this moment, is that guaranteed Illumina with Leet River.
Also you've got a shock user where over-leveling with a shock user, also not the worst idea. Again, shock is going to be non-elemental magic damage throughout the seed, and nobody is immune to shock, so not a bad idea. Really, there's all sorts of good options for that experience egg. None of them bad, and all of them are going to really help Xelpher over-level things. And in normalizing distort, as you said, having an over-leveled party is really not a bad thing.
Yeah, and as chat pointed out, eggs win races, and that is definitely true. Now, we are finding the egg 34 minutes in when everyone's still in their 20s, so it's not as effective as finding it during your initial treasure rush, but that could be the difference here, is finding that realm and Phantom Train leading to Terra, leading to the experience egg could be the difference maker, just showing how wildly different routes can really take different runners, and I'd be curious to see how this kind of plays out. Meanwhile, Xelpher doing the World of Balance Zozo check, a pretty quick check, all things considered. I'd say it's about average, especially if you're not going for the clock, which it does not look like Xelpher is going to bother with.
No, I don't think we've seen too many clocks throughout the Battle Royale. I think some people are pretty good at solving that puzzle quickly, but if it's something that's going to take you even a little bit more time than you like, possibly not worth it, especially for a Dragoon set, and especially in a party like this where I think almost the entire party at this point has, if not a current damage setup for the end game, they're already sort of heading in the right direction. So not the fastest thing to do to get that clock just for a Dragoon set.
Yeah, I agree. I think if maybe you have fixed dice and you are really desperate, it's worth going for the known Dragoon set. But I'm personally slow at solving that puzzle. I don't do a good job taking notes for it. And I don't know how much our runners even try to practice it. I feel like it was a good but failed experiment as part of this tournament.
Yeah, it's funny. I love seeing those kind of options. I love seeing the off the beaten path quests that give sort of that opportunity for different plays. But yeah, it wasn't a very popular one. I think we might have seen one, maybe two restreamed races where somebody went and solved the clock puzzle. But it's tough, especially you deal with some of that row of NPCs on the stairs that won't let you by. It's a bit of a painful experience sometimes for our runners. Not quite as painful as the Air Force is being to Terra, who has joined the party and immediately died.
Yeah, I know Xelpher picked up a Thunder Rod, and I know he picked up a Thunder Shield. I don't remember if he's used either of them, but if you have that shield here, I think it might be smart to break it. Air Force can be very mean, especially on normalizing Distort, because as battle goes on, he can just start racking up his very mean attacks. I would try to end it as quick as possible and break one of those items if he still has it.
Yep, especially now that the spec is out and going to cause even more issues. Air Force is occasionally a boss that we see, even without N&D. Air Force can be a bit of a tricky boss. Some of the offense can come out in a bad order. Sometimes you just get that, what's the volley of missiles that takes everybody down low, and then they followed up with something kooky.
Launcher, yeah. Yeah, launcher plus exactly. Shrapnel can really just mess with things a lot. But now that two of the parts are gone, I think it becomes a lot more manageable. It just ends up being a little bit slower of a fight overall. Meanwhile, we see DoctorDT pick up 3 Rage Rings. Did I miss a Mertrin somewhere? Does he have Mertrin trying to turn that on? Because that is, if so, that definitely would be an interesting setup on his part.
Yeah, not usually the go-to option for emergent defense, but it gets the job done. It eats up one of your relic spots. I did notice too there was a dragon horn in that relic shop, and I don't think there was even a hint of DoctorDT going for it. So no interest in running a Dragoon setup over there as Xelpher picks up Golem. Now, Golem can be a big difference maker. We do know that Fenrir is also floating around, but for Xelpher now, all kinds of options in terms of tier 3. I don't think we're going to see too many issues dealing with some of the tier 2 and tier 3 troubles that we sometimes see.
Yeah, and so Xelpher has Golem now. He has Fenrir. That Golem has Ice 3, so that gives us our level 3 magic. It also has Quick, a expensive but definitely powerful spell in certain situations, none of which that DoctorDT has. We know this Golem's locked behind Terra, and it does not look like DoctorDT might be going in that direction, and I don't think he picked up Fenrir either. I don't remember where that was at, though. Mount Colts, which he has not gone to. So, DoctorDT is definitely a lot worse off than Xelpher is for the final battle, and I'd be curious to see how he manages to rebound from that.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. I'm wondering if we might see the gap expand. There was that early advantage for experience after the dragons, but as Xelpher now, especially with the experience egg, the gap might close, or if it hasn't already. So I think we might see right now that Xelpher's path has just ended up being a little quicker to the punch. That said, DoctorDT is doing a 3-part check here and might come out of this with almost everything DoctorDT needs to go to Final Kefka.
Yeah, this is one of the best series of checks in the game. I don't want to use the word lucky, but Xelpher's definitely had good fortune with the checks he has done that DoctorDT hasn't, finding some good characters and good magicites. So you're really hoping for DoctorDT to get something comparable here to kind of make up for it. Meanwhile, on Xelpher's screen, we saw him pull out a very smart play, which is something you don't see a lot, which is instant death on Phantom Train. something that a lot of runners don't bother with because Phantom Train typically does not have a lot of HP. But with Normalize and Distort, suddenly he is a much beefier Phantom Train that casting X in a few times until one sticks is definitely a good use of time and a very smart play by Xelpher.
Absolutely. With Normalize and Distort, I don't think you want to sleep on any of these bosses. So something like a Phantom Train or a Narapa or the second half of Senior Behemoth, where you can take them down with that one-shot attack. If you've got it, you might as well use it. Try to save yourself some time. So really smart idea. As we see Dr. DT finally getting through the waves of piranhas and finishing off Rizzo Pass here. So and now a trip to Owser's Mansion. How do you feel about the Owser's Mansion trip at this point of the seed?
I'm curious why. Well, I guess there's not that many checks left. Sorry, I was about to say that he has other checks available to him because Ozer's Mansion is about average when it comes to time. Those fixed encounters can be nice, but now that it's having a little more of a drop off for Xelpher. But really, he doesn't have too many other options. There's Leet River, and I think that's it. I think that is the only check he has left besides that and Kefka Narsh that can be a character. I don't think he has a lot of options. I think this is pretty much what you have to do if you don't want to do Leet River, which it looks like he is trying to avoid.
Yeah, and it's funny because if you're ever going to do Leet River with an Illumina on the line, this is probably the time. But you're already, Luxon level 31, the rest of the party already just about to the 30s. Is it maybe just a little too late to justify Leet River, Illumina, or not?
I think at this point, knowing what we know now, it is not the play. Getting that Ice 3 with X Magic definitely takes a lot of the luster off an Illumina, and it is slow. If this wasn't the finals, if you're in a pod where you don't have to be the fastest person, there definitely is value behind it. But at this point, you're trying to make every decision possible to maximize your time, and I think Leet River just is too slow now. I might have done it when we first grabbed the Experience Egg, but at this point, I think this is a smart move trying to avoid it if possible.
Absolutely. I think you sort of get past that window where it's a good idea, and you have to sort of recognize that. And again, that's the mark of these great racers, where they're able to pick up on those subtle cues that the time when this was a good check, it's past. It's not a good check anymore. Dr. DT is chasing Gao around the dream, so again, we're going to see some more divergence as our racers follow very different paths to Kefka's Tower.
Yeah, and I'd be curious to see what this Gao has on him. Gao being unique, where he does not have a fight command, but he can have two abilities. And if we get something decent on him, say a throw or a morph with some good magic, we might have a little bit more endgame offense going for DT over here.
Yeah, especially for DT, who is still walking around with the Yeti. So we're pretty late. We're 45 minutes into the seed almost, and he still has the Yeti on the team. That's got to feel a little frustrating.
Yeah, especially when you look at your Esper count, you see that you only need two more. There are two more checks here. Definitely it's a little frustrating. You might pick up a Esper here, and therefore you only have one more character left, and you don't want to get too many Espers. You don't want to go too far ahead of scaling. You typically want to be in a position where you have to hunt for Espers, not characters. They're a lot harder to find, and it's a lot. You really risk going over scaling if you're trying to look for that sixth character.
Completely. It's being aware of that scaling, I think, is the real key here. Now, hunting Espers a little less painful because of no free progression, of course. I think in a normal seed, you sort of can bang your head against a wall, whereas here you have a pretty good idea. There's only two dead checks. We actually know that one of them is sitting at the Welt Cave, so pretty reliable compared to a normal seed of how to get those Espers, but still, very frustrating to be using Umaro at a point where your party is getting into the 30s.
Yeah, because that is just, when Gao joins, he will be at the average level of the party, but you're missing out on all that magic that he could be learning. He's going to come in, unless he has natural magic, he's going to be coming in with nothing, and it's going to be very slow to teach him up. So definitely not a good feeling. Meanwhile, we're seeing Xelpher take battles at these chests in Owser's Mansion, a strategy I saw him do a few rounds ago, trying to eke out a little bit more experience in a short amount of time.
It's an interesting choice. So we've seen that Xelpher is deciding to go to Owser's Mansion, But when you're taking so many fixed encounters that I was just mentioned, you can almost wonder at that point, would it have made more sense at that time to do the Elite River? You're going to have, 5, 6 random encounters or fixed encounters on the Elite River, but you are going to get Illumina as well as the reward from that boss. Do you think there was maybe an argument to do Elite River instead of Bowser's at this point?
I think at this point you're committed to it. You're really hoping here this is a character to open things back up, because if not, your only choices are Elite and Kefka at Narsh. Hindsight's always going to be 2020, but yes, if you're Xelpher and you walk in here and you see an imp sprite or something, you're going to be really kind of upset and maybe wish that if you're going to take those encounters, you took them somewhere else. And yep, it is a merchant, so that is either our dead check or most likely an Esper here.
Yeah, not the worst thing you'll see here, but again, the options are restricting, as you said. Meanwhile, a decent looking Gao on DoctorDT's side, as well as another Esper. So DoctorDT is really coming up close. One more character and one more Esper, and the door is open to Kefka's Tower. And I don't think we'll be seeing any aggressive pushes for the skip here. Now, Seto, do you think we might see a skip, or do you think that this is going to be what we see?
I was about to say, maybe if this was an Esper, you might see it. But now that we have Strago, our 6th character, no, I don't think you're going to see a skip from either our runners. Neither are in a position that it really makes sense for them. Typically, you don't want to go for the skip unless you really have found too many characters or too many Espers, and it's worth taking those extra, an extra check or two to balance it out. I don't think we'll see a skip. Now, the question is, will we see any double dipping in the Kefka's Tower? A strategy that Xelpher has really liked recently. I'd be curious to see if we see him do that or some variation of it.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see for sure. It really depends, I think, on that comfort level with the bosses and with N&D. Now, we have had a party change up. Strago has made the cut. Turns out throw Strago good enough for the team. So we're seeing some roster change ups on DoctorDT's side. Also, somebody can equip a snow muffler, which is a nice change. Meanwhile, on Xelpher's side, I think we're starting to see some pretty time-consuming encounters. We had a reasonably time-consuming encounter against the Soul Dancers, who were throwing enhancers right to the dome, and then Ifrit and Shiva, who he kind of struggled to get through there in a timely fashion.
Yeah, I think we have two different but interesting situations here. Xelpher definitely has the better offense and party structure with that Valiant Knife and with Terra and Realm, but he is here, if he gets an Esper, he is going to be 2 checks behind DoctorDT. DoctorDT only need 1 Esper to get into Kefka's Tower. However, he just has a little bit less options with his equipment and characters than Xelpher does. He's swapping in two fresh characters who know no magic that he's going to have to teach up very quickly. And on top of it, he does not have Fenrir or Golem for Tier 3. So while he might be ahead time-wise, I'll be curious to see if some of that catches up to him come the tower.
Yeah, really a rough break for not having gone up to the Omaro Cave early. It really does look like the Cyan path tended to be an easier road, but we're still seeing a pretty tight race here. Only 1 character in Esper behind on Xelpher's side, and I think both teams probably have most, or if not all, of the party pieces. But you're right, DoctorDT isn't quite as stocked up to deal with Kefka's Tower. Now, do we think that's going to slow DoctorDT down before heading to Kefka's Tower?
I don't think so. I think that he's smart here going to Nikea. As someone pointed out, Strago has throw on him. I don't believe we've done a whole lot of shopping looking for throwables, but you're going to hit up one more set of shops. Might be able to grab a bunch of edges here. And if you're very lucky, some Shurikens or Ninja Stars to spend your money on, because I don't think we've spent a whole lot of money. But on top of it, as Chet pointed out, he has options. That sword tech is actually, I missed that on Gal, and that's very big because he did the dream. He has all 8 sword techs. That Quadra Slice is going to do a decent amount of damage on with Gal on top of the other sword techs that he has.
Oh, great point. Gal with sword tech 7 is a damage source to behold. As well, you've got sword tech 8 for that cleave, so good instant death against both Tier 1 and Tier 2 of Kefka's Tower, as well as clearing out some random encounters very quickly, always nice for that. And of course, Sword Tech 5, basically an on-demand elixir. So that Gao pickup really going to help out DoctorDT's team.
Meanwhile, with Xelpher, we know that he's going to pick up an Esper here at Tritok, followed by Cyan, his 6th character, at Umaro. However, running into the Dream Stooges, like I said before, normalizing the Distort, the Stooges have a lot of HP. And of course, Xelpher is lucky with the X-Magic Ice 3 is going to tear through Larry, but the other two might take a tiny bit of time. Hopefully you get insta-death with the X-Zone, but this could potentially be a little slower fight if the X-Zone doesn't want to play nice.
Yeah, Tear Through is right. That was a two rounds of Ice 3, and Curly went down hard. So, yeah, we're really looking for that X Zone to hit. And again, this is one of those areas where, meanwhile, if DoctorDT had run into this fight, that cleave would just clear out the poor Larry in the back there. So, but no Delta hit at least, so we will see a successful exit from this fight. But, again, a bit of a time sink here.
Yeah, and speaking of time sinks, we're really seeing how slow Serpent's Trench can be. It is a check you love seeing early game because of the lack of bosses leading to a shop and the fixed encounters, but we're looking at Xelpher climbing all the way up Nourish and finishing a boss before getting through Serpent's Trench. Luckily, this is a good amount of experience he's getting from these fights, really giving that edge in the Kefka's Tower, and if he gets lucky and this is an Esper, not a character, he's going to be in go mode, and I think that time difference between him and Xelpher is going to be really key to his potential victory.
Yeah, it's impressive considering that DoctorDT has actually fought a couple of those extra dragons. Xelpher has opted not to. Do we think that Xelpher is going to change tacks and maybe go after a dragon after all, or is the dragon trip, is it sailed?
I think it's sailed. If he was going to fight a dragon, he would have fought that one right there. Xelpher knows that he has to fight 4 bosses in Kefka's Tower with normalizing the Distort on with weaker parties, and therefore you want to be as low in scaling as possible in order to avoid potentially painful battles. And so taking those 2 dragons, Xelpher's probably betting on the fact that that's just going to make his life in the long run a lot more painful. Not a bad choice at all. I think the dragons are a lot high risk, high reward, depending on what treasure you get. But in this flag set, taking less dragons is really going to make a much easier KT.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right there. It's probably not worth the reward at this point. Meanwhile, we're seeing some more normalize and distort effects as DoctorDT, a relatively innocuous fixed encounter with Wooly and Carcass, but normalize and distort and Sabin and Strago struggled to stay alive there. So I do wonder too, as you're getting into these higher levels, is it not just that fixed encounters are going to eat up time? Are they also potential wipes at any given time?
Oh, definitely. If he ran into something like level magics or something like that and chose not to run, you have a high risk of just wiping. And this was just very unfortunate luck by DoctorDT. Serpent's Trench seemed to be a lot longer of a check than he wanted, and he unfortunately picks up a character and not his last Esper. That's really going to just, make the time advantage he has against Xelpher a lot smaller. Not what you want to see here is another character.
No, not at all. And some of the checks that are available to DoctorDT are not super fast either. I don't think this is, again, not the time in the seed where you really want to go do the Burning House, which we know to be a pretty time-consuming check. We've got Abbott's Rock that DoctorDT might go to. Depending on the Coral Gods, also might be a time-consuming check. So not the greatest options anymore on DT's side.
No, he still has 3 Sabin checks left. He has Mount Colt and Phantom Train, but we know both those are characters. And I believe he has not done Baron Falls, which is that Magi Master. So definitely, what he has left, what some of them might look like, to him are going to be quick, we know are not, or we know that they're dead ends. He is stopping by Gal's Dad House to pick up a few throwables as well, so that was definitely a good pivot on his part, but it turns out it might be a little difficult for him to find that last Esper. He doesn't have too many options, and when he runs into that Magi Master, if he decides to go that route, it might be difficult for him.
Absolutely. Now, we do know one spot where there's probably one last Esper. There's a Thief in Zen who has a pretty good chance of finding that Esper. However, there's a catch. Seto, why is he not immediately rushing down to the Zen Thief?
Because that Zen Thief will increase all levels of bosses, including the final boss, by 10, which is completely insane. It is very powerful. And we talked about earlier about the fight with scaling that they're doing with these dragons, and any check, including dead checks, add to the scaling. 10 levels is pretty much a no. You can't do that. It's you're in for a world of hurt if you decide to do it. So I don't even think that's on anyone's radar, as obvious with DoctorDT doing Ebbett's Rock. Do you care to explain why Ebbett's Rock can be rather volatile?
Ebbett's Rock is a pain in the butt and one of my least favorites because it is just pure RNG. You've got to collect 22 pieces of coral. You can collect more if you want, but you really don't want to. You need 22 pieces of coral, and then you need to take it to the chest at the end, which sounds simple enough, except that every time you step on one of these switches, you go to a random room. So you've got to depend on the random number of coral you're going to get from each chest, and then you've got to hope that each teleporter takes you to another chest instead of just the same room over and over again, or the front door. And then once you've got 22, you then have to hope that you're going to get to be taken to the chest at the end of it, which DoctorDT is reaching now, but he doesn't have enough coral. So a super aggravating check. The only thing that would make it even better is if there were also little green dudes that were kicking you off the side of the cave into a lower part of the cave, but that's another painful check, and we don't need to talk about that right now.
I believe we've joked about that in Discord about combining the two for a world of misery. But yes, we're seeing with DoctorDT what I always run into, which is I am pretty sure it's coded that as soon as you get your last piece of coral, you cannot find that chest. It takes a while to get to it. But honestly, overall, that was probably not the slowest time, but you run into Atma, a very scary fight, especially given the fact that it looks like he did not heal in between his last fight and this one. So hopefully he can maybe pull this out.
Yeah, not an ideal fight here, but doesn't look like it's going to slow them down too much as they're recovering fast. Maybe DoctorDT has secretly installed the dev version of Worlds Collide, where when you get that 20-second piece of coral, you immediately get to go to the end of Ebbett's Rock. Maybe that's what's happened here, because I know that's coming down the pipe for our new players or our existing players. Something to look forward to in the next version of Worlds Collide. Just a bit of a plug for the next version. As we see Xelpher, he's doing it. It's happening. He's taking a trip up the river. He's doing a trip to go visit Uncle Alti. How do you feel about this at the 57-minute mark, Seto?
I mean, I don't feel nearly as excited or happy as I know you feel right now, because you called it half an hour ago. You've wanted him to do this entire time. I'd be curious to ask him afterwards, in hindsight, whether he thinks he should have done it earlier when he first got that experience egg or not. But this is fun at the very least. I'm excited to see what boss he fights here, and that Illumina, especially considering the fact that his party's getting pretty strong overall. We're obviously Locke has an experience egg, but Terra with that Illumina is going to cause some damage.
Oh, Terra with Illumina is great. I mean, there's some really good options here. Xelpher does not want for good offensive options in the end game here. I think Xelpher, the moment those requirements are hit, and again, just one more Esper, I don't think Xelpher is going to be too worried about hesitating to go to Kefka's Tower.
Meanwhile, DoctorDT finishes off that Atma. The fight took a little bit longer than maybe he would like, but the experience should really jumpstart Gal and Strega a little bit more, especially considering the fact that he gets 40 MP. So hopefully that gets them caught up with some of the spells that he wanted them to learn. And looks like we have a character here, unfortunately, with Setzer. Setzer, actually, interesting pickup here, because now he is one character away from a skip, and with Search the Skies, that is maybe potentially a quick Esper that you could Search the Skies and then Daryl's Tomb, or Phantom Train, or Mount Colts, both which we know have a character. Now we're looking for the skip. Now DoctorDT is angling for this Kefka Tower skip, I would imagine.
I have to agree. I think because DoctorDT has... You're right. He's got the Search the Skies, which is a pretty good chance at an Esper. I think it's worth taking the 1 minute scoot down into Daryl's Tomb and seeing what you find in there. Not only do you have a chance to get a quick boss and hopefully a character at the end of it for the skip, but you've got a monster in a box if you're still hunting for an offering. I know DoctorDT is not quite in the same boat that Xelpher is for looking for it, but you do have that chance of getting that offering. And again, it's peekable. You'll find out if an Esper is sleeping in that tomb, and if it's not an Esper, you just leave. You don't have to do it. You just reset out and forget you ever came, and we'll forget too.
Yeah, and this is going to be interesting to see what he does. We mentioned earlier that he was within one check of going to Kefka's Tower when Xelpher, I believe, needed 3. And Xelpher's really closed that gap right now, but he's still in the middle of this Leet River check. But he is 1 check above Dr. DT now. But if DT gets this skip, it can really close the distance. But he's going to have to be able to find the other character. If I were him, I would start looking at Phantom Train. Being able to peek anything early is going to be very important if you're trying to shoot for the skip, because then you know for sure before you go into the check what you're getting. And if he sees a character in there, then you know that's something to really push for.
I mean, I think it's a great call. Very painful, very tough to make the choice to go to the Phantom Train at the 1 minute mark or the 1 hour mark, as Xelpher fights the most notorious and scary boss in the entire randomizer, the leader, the tamest and most friendly of bosses, and he tries to shame him with an X zone. I did see a question in chat wondering where the character for Dr. DT came from. I believe that was the Doma Dream 2, and I know that because of our wonderful official race tracker being maintained once again by Ceiling Cat, who is doing a wonderful job of keeping us up to date and actually knowing what's going on. Meanwhile, Dr. DT, what is Dr. DT fighting in the skies?
That is our, what we call spicy chicken, aka the Poltergeist, aka one of the 3 statues of the Magi, a very, very late game boss. However, DT knows that he has stop, and Poltergeist is one of the few bosses that can be stopped, so he pulls that out, and hopefully that makes what should be a pretty tough fight a lot more manageable. Still going to be long for him with the huge HP he has, but he's not going to have to worry about any of Poltergeist's mean offense for a little bit.
I think it's a great point, and again, one of these marks of a well-experienced runner where, they're not like mortals, like, I don't want to say names, but me, where they've got the old Prima game guide beside them with the status weaknesses and elemental weaknesses. Dr. DT immediately knowing you can hit stop there, which normally might be a little overkill at this stage of the game, but in this situation with normalize and distort, I don't even want to know what Poltergeist is going to be up to, and Dr. DT doesn't want to know either. He's going to stop it right now and have an easy way with it, with some quadra slices and some ninja stars.
Right, and hopefully this leads to an Esper. It cannot lead to a character, so unless Dr. DT gets horrible luck, and this is our second dead check, because there are only 2, and we know 1 is at Welk, this should hopefully give him his last Esper, and then he's just searching for that last character. Meanwhile, Xelpher going up Mount Zozo, a very quick check that we know is going to lead to an Esper. At that point, Xelpher is either going to be 1 check behind him for the skip, or is going to head into KT with 1 character above scaling. Either way, Dr. DT potentially has a good pace if he can get through this fight and find that last character.
And what a tough decision that's going to be, because once Dr. DT has that Esper, it really is, it's just, how do you decide that, right? You've got 1 more character, or you can just go to Kefka's Tower. So the dilemma for Dr. DT, I think, is going to be real. I'll be interested to see what the decision is. I think we'll see a quick character hunt, but there's a really good argument for just, you're in go mode, just go.
I think that and that is the second dead check. Oh, my heart goes out for DT. He's been searching for this last Esper for about 15 minutes now. He's been looking for Esper number 9 and just not finding it. That is some horrendous luck as he tries to figure out where he wants to go next. At this point, luckily with the skips on the table, you can do any check, and if it's a character, you're still getting progress towards something or another. But are we seeing a Kefka Narsh check by DT here?
I mean, it's at least just a single boss check. It's peekable. Compared to other options like the Burning House, which is not really ideal, or I don't imagine there's a ton of interest in Fnatic's Tower. I don't know that Fnatic's Tower would actually be too bad for Dr. DT, but I can also understand some reluctance there. So, I'm surprised we haven't seen a Fnatic's peak, but I can understand why Kefka Narsh might be the call here.
Yeah, I personally don't like Fnatic's Tower. I think it's by far the slowest check, but you're right, you can peek it, and you can peek Phantom Train. At this point, when you're searching so hard for that last Esper, and you don't want to do checks where you don't know what you're getting, at least peeking those, there's definitely value behind it. But DT also knows that he needs both a character and an Esper in order to get that skip, and he has Mog, and therefore Kefka Narsh suddenly becomes a lot more doable because he can potentially get a 2-for-1 here, and he'll be able to peek both of them very easily. So this could be, not a bad play in his part. I forgot that he had Mog. This suddenly becomes a lot more of a pretty decent play, kind of doing both of these.
Completely agree. Having a Mog, really, really good chance. I mean, surely there won't be that third dead check to thwart our racers. So at this point, you would think that this might be a pretty clear path to either a guaranteed Esper, or you're right, that Esper character combination that would get the skip. And, considering that Xelpher is spending a little more time getting some dragon kills, the window might be opening for Dr. DT to leap in front here.
Yeah, the only way this doesn't work in its favor is if it's double Esper or double character. And in which case, if double Esper, he's still well off. And double character, he might as well pick it up. But we'll see in a second what it is. We have at least an Esper, since we know there are no more dead checks. And then we have a character. So this works out very well for DT, being able to get his skip by finishing off both of these checks. Very fortunate pickup on his part. That's going to close the gap a bit more, since Xelpher is in go mode. He has his 9th Esper, and he is taking a 3rd dragon before he presumably heads into Kefka's tower.
Yeah, making quick work of the dragon. So I think there is some good merit to that at this point of, if you know you can fight dragons pretty safely and pretty reliably to take them down, you might as well get that extra experience boost. Again, Normalize and Distort can make some normally safe fights a little more scary, so there's really no harm if it's not going to eat up much of your clock to padding your stats a little bit, getting a bit of an insurance policy with some extra levels. So I think Xelpher now probably heading right for the tower, but nope, proving me wrong, going to the World of Balance. But I do think that Xelpher is probably just about ready to go here.
Yeah, I imagine Xelpher is picking up something from a shop. I don't remember what's in World Balance South Figaro, but perhaps earrings or something else that I feel they could fill out his party a little bit better. Oh, hero rings. One thing about this flag set with tiered shops combined with all the extra fights that people are taking for their experience is that you typically have a lot of money that you don't know what to spend it on. And so end game, picking up those hero rings, which are normally too expensive to buy in the mid game, suddenly becomes a lot better of a play because, well, you can't take it with you.
That's exactly right. And Dr. DT with a throw character has a pretty good sink for that gold. But Xelpher, going in the other direction, picking up a Magus Rod, picking up some hero rings to make those Illumina strikes a little stronger. Meanwhile, Dr. DT fighting another boss that, even without Normalizing Distort, can be a bit of a time sink. How are you feeling about seeing a Guardian at this stage of the game?
I can't speak for Normalizing Distort, but if I'm DT, you're probably not sweating too much about his offense, but you're cursing how long this is going to take. Guardian has, I believe, the most HP outside of Magic Master and some parts of Final Kefka, so he's just going to be a complete sponge. And one additional thing I want to point out that someone in chat mentioned is that Xelpher's characters are getting pretty close to level 40, where Dr. DT is still in his early 30s, and with that skip, even if DT makes it to Kefka first, I think you might see that catch up with him pretty quickly.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, Xelpher has all the pieces of the puzzle in terms of the end game offense. I don't imagine we'll see too many crazy things happening in the tower, especially as we've seen some of the scary bosses already. So we know Spicy Chicken is not waiting in there. We know that the Guardian time sink that can sometimes eat up parties in the tower and the statue position is not there, and we know Leader's not there. So the scary bosses are not there. we haven't seen Doomgaze, we haven't seen Goddess, so there are still some tough ones floating around. But yeah, I think Xelpher is probably in pretty good shape to just mow through the tower here.
Yeah, and really the big win is getting Leader out of the pool. It's going to be a huge relief on Xelpher's part not having that in the back of his head. And meanwhile, DT now has his skip. Of course, he has to walk all the way down this long set of mountain. But yeah, I'm curious to see how this is going to play out to him. Whether or not Xelpher's going to make up time in pure offense, or DT is going to get that time back by skipping a good part of the tower and a boss.
Yeah, and then of course it is Kefka's tower, the final Kefka. Anything can happen. We've seen some very weird stuff happen. Tier 2 especially, some weird stuff can happen. Tier 3, you never know when you're going to get the old Medio into W Wind. I guess probably the other way around is a lot scarier. So anything can happen in Final Kefka, but I think this is going to be yet again for, well, the last time in the Battle Royale, but another close race here, which, man, haven't they all been?
And that's why we love watching this. This is what brings everyone to this stream every Thursday. We love close races. In the end, seeing these different strategies and seeing them pay out in two runners getting very close times, that just is entertaining for all of us. So that's what I want to see in the end, a close race. Because I always say, you never know what happens in Final Kefka. Wiping to, tier 3 or 4 is a 10 to 20 minute time loss depending on your offense. So a close race is just one Kefka wipe away from being someone's victory. So you never know until the flash happens at the end, because it can go anyone's way.
That's exactly it. And watch this space too, because the Battle Royale is going to finish. We're probably 20 minutes or so away from the end of the Battle Royale, but I'm sure there's going to be another big event coming soon. We'll probably see some announcements on the main website and on Discord. So whether you're new to the community or have been here for years and years and years, if you've been here since even 94 when the game first came out, first of all, how? But second of all, amazing. Thank you. Watch this space. There's going to be another big event. And even if you're brand new to the game, join up, join the community, join these events. A lot of fun to be had as we see DoctorDT heading for his own kind of fun by heading into Kefka's Tower at the 1 hour, 11 minute mark.
Yeah, and like Double Down said, check out ff6wc.com or ff6wc.com/discord to join our Discord channel, and stay tuned to more events. I believe there are a few in the works, and the Battle Royale has you psyched. Then come play. We have weekly Seed of the Weeks, we have weekly Living Seeds and draft races, and people are putting on races all the time, both head-to-head and async. So if this looks fun to you and you want to get more involved, please join us in our Discord. I swear we're all friendly, and we just like having a good time running some Worlds Collide.
It's a great group, one of the best groups on the internet, and you're exactly right. Some of these weekly races are a hoot. You get to see some really crazy things. Blame the bot. I see somebody mention Blame the bot. Sometimes the bot gives us a very bizarre random seed. Sometimes it feels a little painful, but you can only feel so much pain when you're playing Final Fantasy VI with your friends. So speaking of seeing pain, though, DoctorDT is encountering another statue boss at the statue position. So a French vanilla statue in Doom. What do we think of this, Seto?
You definitely don't like seeing it with just one character. DT knew this when he did his skip. He knew that he is taking a gamble and that it might come down to what character is on which side. I believe Gal's defense is probably pretty decent, so he's hoping he can just get through these quadra slices, mimic them with Go-Go for a little bit extra damage, but it's definitely going to be long. Luckily, with Sword Tech, you don't have to worry about his image and his reflect that he'll put on in his second part. You can just go right through that and not worry too much about it. So definitely not that. It could be worse. It could be a worse boss. It could be a worse party setup. It's gonna be slow, but I don't see any reason why he would wipe or anything else scary would happen to him.
No, I think I agree. I mean, we do see Doom's aura shaking. Of course, we all don't like to see a shaky aura, but I do think that this is a party comp. Sword Tech is not something that struggles. There are some offenses that you don't want to use against Doom, but I don't think Sword Tech's one of them. So I do think DoctorDT is probably in pretty good shape, but Xelpher hot on his heels. I think Xelpher just needs to get one more person, and he's at the switches now. So the switch solution is happening now, and I think we're going to see Xelpher right there behind DoctorDT.
Yeah, especially with Locke being on his left side. Locke, of course, being very strong with that Valiant Knife. I think we'll see him go through this Doom a lot quicker than DoctorDT, and I would not be surprised if we see Xelpher, catch up on time by the time we step on the final switches and get the light beaming us into Kefka.
Now, one interesting thing that I think also differentiate, obviously we saw some very different paths between our two runners. The other big difference, and I think we'll start to see the difference make itself more clear in the last fights here, Xelpher went to the Coliseum, DoctorDT didn't. I think there's some mixed opinions on the Coliseum as we see Xelpher fighting a probably pretty simple tunnel armor. So how do you feel about the Coliseum in a situation like this?
I think that with the reward menu on, it is worth the check, because popping in, look at the menu, and popping out is maybe 30 seconds or so if you're around that area anyway, if you're around World of Ruin, Narsh, or College Inn or something like that. Of course, without the reward menu, I ran a seed recently that didn't have the reward menu on, and Coliseum is completely worthless in that regard. But I think checking it real quick is good. I think the biggest catch is thinking something's great and doing the fights for it and spending more time than needed for something that is not going to impact you too much. Xelpher did not run into that problem. With Valiant Knives, it is worth the fight to do. But I do see sometimes runners take non-optimal fights for, behemoth suits or something that are good but not worth the time investment.
Couldn't agree more. When you get a fight like Xelpher had of fighting bugs with a Revivify to get a Valiant Knife, I think it's a no-brainer, but you're exactly right that there are some fights you really don't want to take. Meanwhile, Umaro's revenge is at hand. Umaro has been risen from the dead by Haydn as a zombie, and the undead Yeti is, probably not going to do much, but it's kind of fun to see a zombie Yeti in the mix here, and the last of Xelpher's fights at the end of Kefka's Tower.
Yeah, you don't see Chainsmoke too often. Chainsmoke having to revive a dead person into a zombie, unlike every other zombie status move in the game. So it is kind of cute to see it here. But like you said, he hasn't leveled Umaro since the very beginning, so I don't think it'll be too much. DT right behind him on the main path. This tunnel armor should go down hopefully in a minute. But we're seeing that normalize and distort kind of kick in, that the extra HP that these people are having, but they're about neck and neck. Xelpher is one boss ahead of him on the main path, but DT is one Doom ahead of him on the left path, so we're about neck and neck right now.
That said, Xelpher is absolutely clearing these bosses in a jiffy. Xelpher's big advantage on the offense, I think, is starting to make itself clear as these bosses are going down really fast, which is a nice change. We did see earlier on in the seed that Xelpher had a couple really slow encounters, but I do think we're seeing, as you sort of predicted, I think 10 minutes ago, we are seeing that gap close, and I think it's going to be a tight one here. Who knows what's going to happen in Final Kefka, but I think this is neck and neck here.
I think the biggest difference maker, if you don't even want to give credence to Xelpher's offense being stronger, is Xelpher has Fenrir and he has Golem. And that's going to really factor in with Tier 3, and that could be a big difference maker, because both of those were down paths that DT did not go down, and so he does not have access to either one of those. He has the slower Life 3 and a few other options like Shadow Edges to use, so that's also going to be a pretty big difference maker. So far, it looks like the cards are in Xelpher's corner at the minute, as both of them should hopefully be finished this fight up around the same time. So Xelpher definitely looks like he has the better pace, but you never say never. We'll see what happens in the end.
Yep, absolutely. I think it is going to be very close. I also think this has just been a great example of some of the diversity in this game, where we saw both racers eventually take a very different path, and yet here they are almost standing right beside each other at the end of the run. So really, really interesting way to finish off an amazing event like the Battle Royale.
Yeah, and we have a question in chat or a comment about Xelpher's power advantage. And so to kind of break it down, Xelpher has the Valiant Knife on his side. He also has two high magic users in Terra and Realm, one of which has X magic. And we have a reset by Xelpher there. Whereas for DT, he doesn't have any of those options available to him. But he does have sword tech, and he has some other very strong magic to go with it. So I feel like Xelpher has a little bit of an edge offense-wise, but that is not a knock on DT's offense at all either.
No, not at all. I think we're both on the same page here that this could go either way. But man, oh man, that Doom, this is exactly what we're afraid of when you see these vanilla or French vanilla statues, is that sometimes they're not that scary of a boss, except when you're only doing essentially one character. That can be a real problem, especially when they decide that you best be frozen, as we've seen here. So meanwhile, the Haydn fight on DoctorDT's side also taking some time. I would assume that one little Haydn Knight is maybe another victor in the N&D lottery, as he's been the little Haydn Knight that could, but turns out they're all dying anyway.
Yeah, and that was a kind of a blow to Xelpher there and a boon for DT, taking that reset on a very unlucky freeze, while Xelpher runs into Daddy Behemoth over here and spending some time on his magic menu. His main offense being Ice 3 does not work here, and so really trying to analyze what options he have to take out the first form. I don't know how happy he feels about double casting Slow Flare, but if DT has a slightly better setup for this fight, you could really see some of the time made up very quickly.
Yep, I mean, if you've got the instant death, that second half of the Senior Behemoth fight is going to go well. And that is, again, we're seeing some of the pluses and minuses on both sides. Dr. DT, we know, has the instant death with Sword Tech 8 versus Xelpher, who's got some of the other pieces of that Final Kefka puzzle in some multiple strong calmness options. I believe both racers have mute, but either way, we're seeing a bit of a difference, and I think we might see a different experience in the Final Kefka fight as well as a result.
Yeah, and DT taking a unnecessary battle here, doing what we've all done before, which is forgetting to equip a Moogle Charm in Kefka's Tower and taking a fight. So that's going to slow him down a little bit as he walks into the Senior Behemoth fight. And Xelpher struggling to get that last little bit of damage on him, but managed to kill him, and now we'll see those dooms that Terra knows hopefully tear through this Senior Behemoth very quickly.
Yep, I mean, there's the Doom there. Honestly, a lot of good options for Xelpher here to get rid of the Senior Behemoth, but it was a pretty slow trip to get here, and I believe that Doom is still floating around here after this fight, so Xelpher has a ways to go yet, as we're seeing the last couple fights before Final Kefka slowing both of our racers' previously torrid pace down a little bit.
Yeah, and DT's pace, as pointed out by chat, in this fight might not be that great either. He's doing a little less than 6k per Ninja Star, which is very good, but with one person, it's going to take a little bit to get all the way through Behemoth's defense here, and that is a 1k Ice 3. You can't take too many more of those of that from him, but he gets through that phase rather quickly, actually.
Yeah, kind of made pretty quick work of it. I mean, a little scary when you don't have the elemental protection you need there. Meanwhile, Terra on the other side, Grand Train did come out from Senior Behemoth for Xelpher, so another lower in the pocket if that comes up.
Yeah, but DT, using a quarter there, knowing that with Senior Behemoth weak to instant death, that he can hit him with these gravity-based spells. I'm really hoping to take off a good chunk of his HP in lieu of instant death, and he does max damage, so that's going to make those throws, hopefully will make this fight a lot quicker.
Yep, heads up play. If you don't have the instant death, you know that gravity will get the job done. And DoctorDT, of course, not for the first time in this race, has picked up on one of those little nuanced plays. Again, just the hallmark of the elite level racers that we're seeing at the end of this Battle Royale.
Absolutely. I always tell people this who are newcomers, the most rewarding thing about Worlds Collide is in-depth knowledge. That what separates newer runners from runners like DT and Xelpher is just the little things that maybe come up every 20, 50, 70 runs, but when they do, it can really give the edge. This randomizer, in lieu of mechanical, challenging, really rewards people who really understand the mechanics and every nuance of this game, and we're seeing some of that between both of our runners.
Yep, it really does reward that resourcefulness, and these are two very, very resourceful racers. Now, we are seeing in chat too some mention of Phantom. Now, Phantom and Quick, not always the most commonly talked about calmness protection. So, Seto, tell me about calmness protection and tell me why Phantom and Quick are not the ones we reach to when we're thinking about this.
Right, so calmness is a instant death attack that Tier 3 will use when he dies. In Final Kefka, if a character is dead when you transition from one tier to another, they're gone. You can't revive them. So by ending with an instant death, he is guaranteed to take someone out before going into the last phase of Kefka. He also has a 33% chance of doing it a second time. So you might go into Final Kefka, Tier 4, down 2 people. Unlike other instant death like Doom, it is a physical attack. Which means that stuff like Safety Bit doesn't work, but there are other ways to prevent it. Anything that can block or evade physical attacks can block calmness. So we mentioned that Xelpher has Golem and Fenrir. These are both espers that can block and evade physical attacks very well. Phantom casts Vanish on your entire party. Vanish will let you avoid every single physical attack, but every magical attack has a 100% chance of hitting. And if you get hit with a magical attack when you have Vanish, you lose that Vanish status. So Phantom can be used to avoid calmness, but is very tricky, because if you use it and he casts Meteor, you just wasted that calmness protection. But with Quick, you can sit here and use Quick, use Phantom, and then use whatever magic spell or attack as your second option or Quick to hopefully get that last little bit of damage in to easily avoid calmness. I normally don't like Phantom for calmness protection because I'm bad at timing it, but with Quick, you have a lot more breathing room.
I think I've successfully timed it once, and Let me tell you how satisfying it is to successfully use Phantom as commonest protection. Now, Dr. DT, probably on arguably the easiest part of Kefka, Final Kefka, who I think he started at 123. So, tier 1, you've got the face and you've got 2 arms. There is a bit of an order you want to kill these guys in. You definitely don't want the short arm, the one making the little punchy fist. You don't want that one to be the second last one, and you don't want the face to be the last one to die, because if the face is the last one to die, what it's going to do is it's going to cast Quake, and Quake has a bad habit of killing most or all of your team. So generally you want to use instant death on that long arm at the front, then you want to take down the face, and then you want to make sure that that short arm dies last.
That's right, and we did see DT use Doom on the long arm. Long arm and tools in tier 2 are both weak to instant death, which our runners both have. So that really makes the fight a lot easier, having one less person hitting hard. But like we've been mentioned this entire seed, normalizing the starter on. Most of the time with our scaling, Kefka is immune to it. You always know what you're getting at with Final Kefka, but normalizing the start, that is not the case, and this fight can last a long time. These parts have a lot more HP, and DT is his damage is only in the 2k with some of our characters. It's definitely gonna take him a little bit to get through some of these parts, I would imagine.
Now, just looking at the times here, we have Xelpher showing up at the Final Kefka fight at around the 125, 126 mark. So that's an 18-minute Kefka's tower. Dr. DT, a 12-minute tower. So the skip saving that 4.5, 5 minutes that's supposed to be. Xelpher losing a little bit more time because of that reset on Doom. But as we see Xelpher starting tier 1 and Dr. DT starting tier 2, again, very, very close race, and Xelpher has the pieces to get through these parts of the fight very quickly. So it is going to be neck and neck from here on to the end.
One thing I wanted to point out, because we've been talking so much, because there's so much to talk about with Worlds Collide and with this race, but one thing I wanted to point out, because this last option we have, is that this seed is a little bit special, where we are using a music randomizer that you can generate with our seed bot in Discord. It is unfortunately not optional. You have to bake it into the seed, but it does mix up all the music with music from other Super Nintendo and PlayStation RPGs to kind of match whatever setting or battle, whatever that you're in. So that's why if you've been listening, you might be hearing different music than you expect from Final Fantasy VI. Is we've also randomized that to kind of like spice up the final round a bit, make it feel a little bit different than previous rounds.
Absolutely. I mean, the song we're hearing right now, one of my favorites. I can't get the song out of my head ever. You'll have to tell me what it is, but it's one of my favorites.
And of course, Double Down, kind of joking a little bit here. Unfortunately, with our setup, he is mute. He's not been able to hear the awesome soundtrack that's been going on. And I would love to help you out, but this song actually is on the tip of my tongue, and I don't know what it is. So we'll have to go back and listen to the tape afterwards, buddy.
No problem. I'm assuming it is Chumbawamba's Tub Thumper, but yeah, again,
that's why
we'll
it was on
check
tip my
afterwards.
tongue. Yeah.
That's what I figured. It was either that or Baja Man, who let the dogs out. But we do see Xelpher has let the dogs out and is going to tier 2. So the gap is closing. He's right on Dr. DT's tail. This is a close one.
Yeah, I think this is exactly what I mentioned. Xelpher's offense is a little bit better, and therefore the gap is, as you said, is now closing. He got through that tier 1 ridiculously fast, and I would not be surprised if we see him come out of tier 2 tied with DT or even get out of there before him. And it makes you wonder if DT got a little bit better luck with find that last Esper, if he would be a little farther along here. But we're going to start seeing what the different builds both our runners ended up with, because they took very different routes. We'll see how that plays dividends.
We really will. I mean, there's very different optimizations of both teams. Dr. DT, much faster path to instant death, which of course is critical in both tier 1 and tier 2, whereas Xelpher is having to spend a little bit more time X-magicking with Terra to double cast Doom just to be sure the job is getting done. It's worked so far, but again, those are 2 turns of Terra's damage that you're not getting. Meanwhile, Sword Tech 8 cleans it out, never misses. So, a nice fast thing. But then again, we're seeing some other differences here, and I think we're going to continue seeing those, especially on tier 3. With that calmness protection difference that you laid out for us a few minutes ago, I think tier 3 is going to be the big difference maker here.
You made a very good point with Cleave versus the double X magic. I wouldn't have picked up on that, originally. Cleave being the only ability that you have that is 100% instant death. But I think the big thing you're seeing with DT here is that, he's relying on Shock, which is split damage with multi-target, which we still have 2 targets. And he's relied on Sword Tech 7, that Quadra Slice, which is random who it hits. And when you have offense that you can't aim, such as this or offerings or other things, tier 2 really can cause you problems because you might not hit the things you want to hit. However, he does manage to kill hit, leaving only magic, and now all those split damage and Quadra Slices should tear right through the final part of tier 2 in a moment, hopefully.
I think the other thing that could just turn the absolute jets on for Xelpher is if Locke takes some damage. Locke sitting in there with those Valiant Knives, but also sitting topped up at a very healthy 6,000 hit points. Now, if Locke takes 2, 3, 4,000 damage to the head, those Valiant Knives are going to start mowing through stuff. So we'll have to see how Locke's defenses hold up and if they can crumble just a bit more for Xelpher's liking.
That's right. And DT, moving on to tier 3, so I was a little bit wrong with my prediction that Xelpher would end at the same time. He's a little bit behind, but as chat pointed out, the Calmish protection, that's going to be key here. DT's going to have to take a little more time and care to set up that Phantom quick, or just roll the dice and hope that you do fine with it. But DT's disadvantage of these Quadra Slices and split damage are going to go away as soon as Girl is killed. As soon as Girl's killed, we have no more multi-parts left, and therefore Sword Tech and Shock will be able to shine as well as they can shine at this part of the game.
Yeah, you really can't go wrong with 128 magic power blast on demand. Xelpher also, with a very, very smooth play, drops the Phantom just before the final hits, so that 10-hit combo that we're going to see at the end of tier 2, 10 whiffs, not a single bit of damage. Xelpher probably could have shrugged it off, but just a really smooth play that, again, kind of the hallmark of the sort of players we're seeing at this point.
He probably could have shrugged it off, but one thing about this is, especially with Normalize and Distort, you want to be conservative when you can. You don't want to take a huge time loss being conservative, but you want to be conservative when you can in order to make sure you don't wipe. And so, you never know if they all tend to decide to hit Realm, and that could have killed a character. So definitely smart play by Xelpher. However, unlucky with Whirlwind hitting all 4 characters, something you don't see too often, and therefore having to use Terra's double X magic to get everyone back into comfortable levels.
Yep, I mean, bad in that everybody almost died. Good in that, did you see that Valiant Knife hit? That Locke just turned around and smoked Girl for 6,000 just with a little dagger hit. So that Valiant Knife getting that 4,000 damage bonus right off the top, you can't complain too much about that.
That's right. Sorry, I have something off. Give me a second. Small technical issue.
No problem. So we do see that Girl has gone down on DoctorDT's side. So the tricky thing now is, of course, very carefully watching that damage. We don't want to see you get to the point where you can start taking Meteor counters to everything. At a certain point, it can almost feel like you're taking those double Meteors. However, we do see DoctorDT leveraging these quick casts. So really using quick to monitor the damage and make sure that you're either not triggering those Meteor counters or that you're punching right through before you can encounter something like a Meteor into a wipe.
I think it's very smart on his part. I know I struggle with getting Meteor timings, and like you said, it takes one Meteor to really just ruin your day, and using quick to get around that as much as possible, especially with these trains. But that is really rough luck for DT. Kadem comes through and kills Gao, and immediate train is going to make that quick that Strago has lined up not do anything. So he's going to have to do some triaging to get his party back up. Meanwhile, Sleep is in that phase where he can start pelting Meteors while he's trying to recover. So this is going to be a little tricky on DT's part as he heals Sleep up to hopefully get him above that HP damage barrier to make him a little more palpable.
Again, one of those heads-up plays that we've started to see more and more as we get up higher into the Battle Royale levels that, sometimes you need to drop those Revivifies to keep the final tier 3 boss from getting to that point where they're going to spam you with Meteors, especially because it's very difficult to both stabilize an ailing party and deal meaningful damage while you're also taking Meteors and trains. So very heads up play there by DoctorDT to recognize that they've got to spend some time stabilizing, they've got to do some recovery work, so get Gao up, get back in the driver's seat, and then start putting the damage back on.
Yeah, and we're seeing DT. He's really hoping to kill, to get through Sleep's entire phase all at the last minute, quicking, throwing a Skyrender, throwing the Thunder Shield, and unfortunately getting a little unlucky, Gal being taken down anyway due to a double calmness, and we are neck and neck going into Final Kefka with DT maybe a second or two ahead.
Wow, can you believe this? We started this with 38 competitors, and here we are 8 or 9 rounds later. We're both going to Kefka's Tower within half a second of each other. This is the tightest finish we could ever imagine. What a great event this is going to be, and what an awesome finish.
This is why we watch Worlds Collide. This is why we all tune in every Thursday. We love seeing races like this, and this is exciting. You know, Xelpher has a little bit of edge with having 4 party members. DT getting unlucky with that Gal being lost, but you know, this is still anyone's game. Kefka has a lot of HP. We're gonna probably see a few Goners go through. But, you know, all it takes is one Meteor or Ultima to really spell doom for one person or another. So this is exciting.
Yeah, and this is normalize and distort Kefka, so you never know what's going to happen. Is he going to start double gonering you? We do see Fallen One coming out, which Locke is going to absolutely love with that Valiant Knife. This is going to be tight, but wow, we're seeing Kefka's on both sides, same time. This is it right here.
Yeah, and Xelpher, the great play, using Final One to be able to attack with Locke, get a whole bunch of damage in, and then using that Mega Elixir. He got all the way at the beginning of the sea from that Magic Master to get everyone back up. And we have a Hyperdrive, but he has so much HP that Terra's able to take the Hyperdrive to the face, and Xelpher's already in the second phase of Final Kefka as Goner's charging up.
Goner's coming out. There's no counters here. This is it. Can Xelpher get the damage in before Goner goes out and become the Battle Royale 22 winner?
Yeah, he should be moments away, I would imagine. I don't think he'll have enough to kill him before Goner happens, but we'll see. That Quick might be enough to do it. Using very smart X Magic into Quick, let him cast 3 times in quick succession. No pun intended. And we'll see if this does it. And that is game by Xelpher. GG Xelpher with a final time of 1 hour, 36 minutes, and 26 seconds.
Xelpher, the 2022 Battle Royale champion. What a campaign, what a journey. Xelpher proving that he is, as we all know already, one of the elite, one of the creme de la creme of Worlds Collide racers, putting on an absolute show for us here, and narrowly edging out and almost equally talented and fierce competitor in DoctorDT. What a race, what a finish. I can't believe it, Sato.
I can believe it because Xelpher came from the strongest pod, the Inferno pod. Since Xelpher's one eliminated me, I raced him a lot. I saw his skills firsthand. He is extremely strong. He's taken this very seriously. He's put into practice, and overall, he's just very good at Worlds Collide. And so, GG to Xelpher. That was a well-fought victory, and DT not too far behind him. Electing to finish out this final Kefka, wow, there's just so many things that ended up making this go back and forth by both runners. So many elements that I can't wait to discuss with both of them to kind of get their thoughts on what they did well and what could have done better.
Yeah, really a tale of 2 runs, and yet almost still to the very end could have gone either way. A tough break for DoctorDT there in Tier 3, I think, losing that gal. But, I think people have heard enough about me. Xelpher is joining us now. GG Xelpher, the 2022 Battle Royale champion. How are you feeling right now, Xelpher? Speechless.
Xelpher, you seem your mic might not be working.
It's a state of absolute shock and speechlessness right now for Xelpher. Xelpher cannot even come to terms with the massive victory that has just been achieved. He is speechless. I think we can hear the quiet sounds of joyful sobbing in the background as Xelpher is just really taking this moment to soak in the victory.
As the champ, he can take all the time he wants. We are, of course, waiting on him for his word. This is the post Super Bowl of Worlds Collide. we're trying to catch him on the field, but he is too busy celebrating, getting the shirts on, fighting through the confetti, seeing his family. So hopefully we'll get a word in a moment. As the champ,
can you hear me now?
He wants.
Sure can, Xelpher. GG. How you feeling right now, Xelpher?
This is the post Super Bowl of Worlds
Oh,
Collide.
I need my heart to calm down after that one. Oh man.
Real quick, we do have a victory from DT at 1 hour, 39 minutes, and 21 seconds. Congratulations, DT, on that second place
Xelpher. GG.
win.
How you feeling right now, Xelpher?
Yes, GG's DoctorDT. Very nice.
Real quick, we do have a victory
DT
from
really,
DT
really,
at
Xelpher,
1
giving you a
hour,
run for your
39
money.
minutes,
That was a race
21
that I
seconds.
think we were both on the edge of our seat trying to figure out who was going to come out ahead. One was pulling ahead, then the other. Xelpher, walk us through. How'd you feel about that seed?
At the very beginning, I thought it was going to be okay. We had Shock, we had Quasar for lore. I'm like, all right, this isn't going to be bad. And then like a half hour in, I'm like, things are a little tough. What do we do now? I don't even know. And yeah, it was just after that, it was just like, all right, something needs to break, please, pretty please. And then of course the whole time I'm sitting there like, well, I'm not finding anything. I'm really hoping Dr. DT doesn't find anything either, because if he doesn't, I don't. I'm in real trouble right now. But we managed to get our act together right at the end.
Well, you both found stuff. You both found very different stuff. You end up taking very different routes with you finding Realm early, which of course led to Terra, and him going the Cyan route early. One question that we kind of had that we were musing over was, when you got Terra, you were already 2 of 3 checks away from getting that Illumina. How did that factor into your run? Because you eventually went to Elite River, but it was much later.
So yeah, about that, I forgot that I already did Phantom Train in Phoenix Cave, so I was just pure instinct at the beginning was, I don't want to do Elite River. Forget that. We're gonna do everything else. And then right around the time I was in Umaro's spot, I'm looking like, crap, I'm gonna need one more check. What do I do? And I'm like, oh wait a minute. If I do Elite River, I get an Illumina. I know Terra can equip Illumina. If I'm really lucky, somebody else can equip it better. That would be better. I'm like, all right, fine, we'll do Elite. And then I got the Illumina, but I didn't get my Esper. So it kind of worked.
Yeah, I mean, it did work in the end. I was kind of curious where you're going to go, especially when you went into the Hauser's Mansion. But now the other kind of speed bump I think we saw near the end of Kefka's Tower was that Doom fight. So walk us through your approach to that Doom fight. We saw the reset. How did you regroup, and what was your approach to revisiting that fight?
Oh man. At first I saw Doom, I'm like, all right, Doom's not bad. Doom's not that bad. We'll be okay here. And then he froze lock, and I'm like, oh, this is terrible. I'm like, I don't have fire or anything. So I tried to play it out a little bit. Doom went into his next phase, and only Locke was alive. I'm like, nope, Locke's gonna get targeted, and then he's gonna get Demon Rage, and he's gonna be done. I'm like, this isn't gonna work. So I reset out of that, and I'm like, we'll do something else. We'll do Senior Behemoth. We'll do the other thing. And it was Senior Behemoth. So I'm like, great. My greatest offense is Flare, and he counters Flare all the time. So I had to abuse quick, and we eventually got through that. And I'm like, okay, back to Doom. What do we do? I'm like, we try to block N-Cross. I'm like, if we can raise Magic Block, we'll probably block N-Cross, because it's very inaccurate. So I'm like, Force Shield. I'm like, if I put a Force Shield on Locke, he'll probably won't get frozen, and then we'll be okay. And that's exactly what happened. So I was like, yes. He did his little shaking thing. His image will eventually disappear if you just keep on trying to smack him. So that's what I did, and then it disappeared, and then we smacked him some more, as he deserved.
So we're also joined here by Dr. DT, our runner-up. So we want to extend congratulations and GG to you, good sir. Welcome.
Yeah, hey everyone, and hello, and a huge GG to Xelpher.
Thank you. Huge GGs to you too. That was apparently really close.
Yeah,
GG, just from listening to the tail end, I just got in here, and just listening to the tail end of what you had to say, it sounds like we did very different things in this scene.
Yeah, I guess so. I'm gonna have to watch a lot of this, see what happened.
Yeah,
I think you'll really enjoy it. I think you'll find. I mean, you guys. I believe once DT found Cyan, all bets were off. You guys ended up going very different directions. DT, how did you find that race? How did you find that seed?
I mean, I found it felt like a really good start, like a really strong start with Quasar and with Shock. You know, that, and with Yeti. Yeti's always a good first start in these in this flag set. So I felt really strong from the get-go, and then I felt like I just wasn't finding good damage. I looked in a bunch of places for earrings. I never found earrings. So all of my magical damage was just, you know, vanilla strength, and that felt real bad. And then I came on Gao. Where did I even find Gao? In the dream, I guess. So I came on Gao, and that was Sword Tech Blitz, and I was like, okay, this will work out for me. Especially with all these Strength +1 Espers. Sword Tech 7's going to be doing work for me. And then Gao led me straight to Strago on the Velt, and Strago had Throw. So I'm like, okay, great. So finally we have something that'll grow into the endgame. And so those two guys pretty much carried me through the rest of it, and I was super struggling with Sabin and Locke. They ended up just kind of waiting around, trying to keep everybody else healthy and alive. Yeah, but probably the most frustrating thing about this was I think I got up to like 5-8, right? 5 characters, 8 Espers. I was like, okay, we're gonna wrap this up soon. And then I got my 6th character, then I got my 7th character, then I got my 8th character. And I was like, oh geez, this is terrible. I took 8th character gave me Search the Skies, so I searched the skies and it was dead. I was like, okay, I need to in order to stay in this, I need to get Skip. And the only place that has 2 checks right next to each other is Kefka, Narsh, and Mog. So I ran up there, I did that, it got me what I needed, and I guess it put me back in the race, but not quite good enough.
Yeah, I think it was almost 15 minutes in between Esper 8 and Esper 9 for you. I thought
it was brutal.
I thought you'd be jumping the KT around the 50-minute mark, and instead you're getting about 107 or so with the skip. It was very brutal, but that was your biggest edge the entire time. They kind of compare and contrast both of you. You know, DT, you had the speed edge. You know, you did less shopping than Xelpher did. You were hitting your checks a little bit earlier, and you had a much, you know, quicker pace that, you know, you entered with the skip only about a minute or so after Xelpher entered normally. But Xelpher had a little bit better offense in the end, and that's how Xelpher came in at Final Kefka a few minutes after you, but he was making up grounds all during the tower, and then was able finally in Tier 4 to be able to put it away, and was able to kind of come back all the way up until catch up to you in Tier 3. So that was really the biggest difference maker. Was you definitely had a lot of optimizations that got you an early pace, but Xelpher just had slightly better items and options available to him.
Yeah, and I was all ready to convert to a Merton strats if Merton ever showed up, but it didn't. I kept looting chests pretty late, I think, looking for something to accentuate my damage. But that's going to be really exciting to watch. I'm looking forward to going back to it. When I was sitting at 6-8 at 50-some minutes, I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to do Xelpher's thing and like double dip the tower, because that seemed to work really well for him. But alas, it did not pan out this time.
I think one of the other big differentiators between you two and your offenses was a pair of Valiant knives that one of you had and one of you didn't. So Xelpher, I guess starting with you, your thoughts on the Coliseum in this flag set. What was your approach there, and what was your kind of thought process in heading to the Coliseum early?
So in this flag set, most of the time I really don't bother with the Coliseum at all. I'm just like, well, you go in, they do random stuff. It never goes the way you want. But if you have a Yeti, then he's just always just going to smash the enemy. So I was like, all right, we start with a Yeti. Let me just peek the Coliseum really quick. It's not going to take long just to peek it and see if something pops up. So I went in, peeked it, saw a Valiant Knife, and I was like, oh, all right, well, this is going to be useful.
Man.
And, well, first I got petrified twice because it was a bug, and apparently they petrify you, and that was unpleasant. But the third time was the charm. And after I got one of those, we were all set.
And I guess, DT, from your perspective, has the Coliseum been a play for you in the Battle Royale?
I've checked it a couple of times when I was, especially when I needed exactly one thing to to complete a set. Like if I needed a dragon horn to go with my dragon boots jumper or whatever, or if I needed one more elemental shield so I could do Merton, I've gone and checked it. But this time, hitting, I don't know what it was, 110 when I got the skip and went into KT, I was just like, there's just no time. I just need to go. I'm racing against Xelpher. I know how that guy goes, and that guy tends not to do, significantly more than an hour 30 on these. So
we have a question from chat, by the way. Someone wants to know why you both of you decided to do Phoenix Cave right at the beginning.
Well, in the very beginning, I was like, well, Phoenix Cave gives you some treasure in the beginning, so that's always nice. And we also had Imperial Camp for fixed encounters to gain XP. So if you do something free first, like Phoenix Cave, you boost the progress a little bit, so you get a little more XP, you get a little more power, kind of just starts the scaling up in your favor a little bit. So yeah, and I wasn't planning on taking the dragon, so I didn't care about coming in late. So I was just like, all right, yeah, sure, give me some treasure, and boost the enemies a little bit, so I get more XP overall. Sounds good.
Yep, same logic here. There's a fair amount of treasure in there. It's a little bit slow, but this flag set, Normalize and Distort, it's all about survivability in the end game. So if I can make all of those battles I'm going to do along the way count a little bit more by boosting the progression, then I'm going to do that.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. So 8 rounds later, we've gone from 38 to just 1. DoctorDT, we'll start with you. Your thoughts on the Battle Royale overall? How did you feel about the entire campaign, the format? What are your thoughts?
I mean, I had a ton of fun this whole process. I thought that before Normalize and Distort got turned on, I thought that this flag set was just really fun to play as a race. Like it felt like nice and tight. Like you weren't always. I felt like it really walks a nice line between speed and just doing one more thing to just try and get a little bit more power. I think that the balance on it's really good. Yeah, and week after week, I kept not getting kicked out, and I'm just glad to be here. This was a ton of fun. Thanks to all of the people I eliminated along the way, and I look forward to a rematch Xelpher in the future.
And of course, that sort of leaves us with only one person to ask, the one who has essentially, in Worlds Collides, murdered every single other person he's come up against, Xelpher. An up-and-comer, somebody who, has not really been a big name on the scene. No, I think we're kidding. Obviously, a well-established, high-level player of this. How did you feel about Battle Royale?
Well, I don't know if I just we put everybody in a safe spot. We didn't murder anybody. Everything was okay. I had a lot of fun with the Battle Royale. I also thought the flag set was really good. Kudos to Boo for making the flag set. I do have choice words about Normalize and Distort, but it's designed as a challenge flag, so it really and you know what? It definitely was a challenge. The format itself was a lot of fun too. I like how in the beginning it's like, all right, you know what? There's a lot of people. I'm probably not the guy that's gonna get kicked out, maybe. And then as you just keep on progressing, it's like, oh, alrighty. Looks like pickings are a little slim now. We really got to step it up, otherwise we're gonna be the ones. I like how it just kind of scaled up like that too.
Yeah, that sort of slow creep in the power curve as you're seeing, only the strong surviving. It's a bit intimidating.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun overall. Thank you everybody for participating. Thank you for everybody for setting it up. It was a good time. Thank you.
And also, thanks. Let me just put this in here. Thanks to all of the Restream crews. You guys have done an amazing job. Saberwolf, who's not here tonight, his comms and all of this was really fantastic. And you, Seto Kiyaba, Double Down, thanks for all of your hard work on this stuff.
Oh, thank you. And yeah, like I said, definitely major props to Saberwolf for doing a lot of work on a lot of different things throughout this entire tournament. And thank you again to Ceiling Cat, our tracker, for doing an excellent job and allowing us to quickly look up information to make our jobs easier. Well,
yep. More same here. Ceiling Cat, all the other trackers we've had along the way. It really does take a full team to get this job done, and it goes so smoothly because of the expertise and the sort of dedication that this community has. So, just mirror that as well. Find these people on Twitch, follow them, give them a shout out on Discord if you see them. Really, really great work, especially from some of these unsung folks working behind the scenes to make this all a smooth operation.
Well, I think that's about it from our side. The race is over. The Battle Royale is over. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Thank you, DT and Xelpher, for an amazing race, showing off the highest skills in Worlds Collide for all of us to see. It has been a epic and fun last, 2 months or so of this tournament. And I think we've all had a blast. And yeah, I think that's about it. I think it's almost time to sign off. Anything else you want to add, Double Down?
No, it's been a long term. I haven't slept since Battle Royale started, so I am beat. I can finally get a good night's sleep. I'm gonna get a solid 3 hours tonight. It's gonna be wonderful. But what a great event, and I cannot wait for the next one. I don't know how they're gonna top this. I don't know what prize Xelpher is going to win, and it's going to be great. I'm looking forward to the next one.
Exactly, and like we said, there's some works in the horizon. I've heard whispers of events coming soon, so please join our Discord at ff6wc.com/discord if you're interested in staying up to date. Check our announcements thread, and I think we have a role or two maybe to help with new events, so we hope to see everyone at the next tournament, which hopefully should be very soon. So with that, I am Seto Kaiba.
And I'm Double Down.
And thank you for joining us tonight, and we will see you next Thursday. Good night.
Have a great night, everybody.